everyone, and thank you for having me here today. Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, I would really like to apologise. I don't have any graphs, not a sniff of a pie chart, and my only stat is 10 years old. For those of you that saw me last night judging the Upcycling award and giving out my Upcycle trophy and wondering who the hell is she, my name is Charis and I am the Salvage Sister. And basically, I just love junk. Cast-offs, skip diving, trawling reuse centres, charity shops, reclamation yards and boot sales. Basically anywhere I can find a freebie or a bargain to work on. And I love upcycling, the art of creatively adding value to a previously overlooked and undervalued item. I have made many items from other people's trash. Stuff that was discarded because the owner just couldn't see the value in it. Anyone that knows me will tell you that I am extremely tight. I love saving money, and I also love that warm, squishy feeling you get from saving the planet that you live on. So reuse and upcycling for me has always been a complete no-brainer. It's also a way I can unleash my creativity and come up with harebrained ideas and designs. Plus, it means my style is very difficult to copy exactly. You might have guessed that, or you might be blind. So, if all is going to plan right now, you should be seeing a slideshow. Yeah, we're all good. And these are lots of projects that I've completed with materials that I've either sourced for free or very cheap. Some of these I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in a minute. But before I get onto the method of my madness, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, and that will hopefully show you what drives me and where I find my inspiration. So it's totally nuts, I know, but I wasn't born the Salvage Sister. I was, however, born in sunny Brighton by the sea, which I think has a great deal to answer for in terms of my creative, quirky streak. I'm from a working class background. My parents were both self-employed and ran their own businesses. My mum actually started up one of the first vintage hire shops in Brighton over 30 years ago, and much of my childhood was spent trawling boot sales and watching her barter for a good deal on anything old, unusual, vintage and weird, and I guess that stuck. My father grew up during World War II, and yep, he's incredibly old, and because of this, and living through rationing as a child, he always had an extreme aversion to waste. He actually used to ration toilet roll in our house, among other things. If we had a household motto, ours was definitely waste not, want not. I heard this so many times growing up. Anytime I tried to leave a bit of food on my plate, or got caught smuggling toilet roll, which was actually a thing in our house, the waste not, want not was reeled out. My dad called himself a painter and decorator by trade, and to be honest, he was much more of a refurbisher who took great pride in his work, and he would go to any lengths for his clients. Whether it meant building a wooden staircase from reclaimed wood, or replacing parts of a rotten window frame with old wood to make it match. Over time, he became quite sought after by wealthy families who'd had enough of throwing money at projects and constantly being told it can't be done by various tradesmen. The way my dad saw it, if your client is paying you to do a job and they change their mind about the colour of paint for a second time when you've completed painting a room, then who cares? And if they would rather you refurbish their old front door, which will take 3 times as long and cost them 3 times as much, but as much than replacing it with a new one, but they're paying you for your time, then who cares? My dad always really wanted things done properly, and his attention to detail was impeccable, and this is something that I really try to carry on myself and pass the tradition on to my own children. I feel sadly this has been watered down through the generations, and there's just not enough true craftsmanship left. I use past tense, by the way, because my parents are both retired, not dead. As a young adult, I was extremely painfully shy, and I just didn't have the confidence in myself or my abilities to take the path that I really wanted. I remember turning up to a meeting with my careers advisor with all my artwork tucked underneath my arm as a nervous 16-year-old who knew nothing but was desperate for a creative career. I was told, and I quote, "Artists never make any money until they're dead. You're wasting your time. It's not a career. Look at Van Gogh." We're talking about the pronunciation of that, and hopefully I've got enough phlegm into it for you. "You'd be better off getting a job in admin." Oh. So off I went, crushed. He had compared me to Van Gogh, but still. Needless to say, I ended up working in a bank for the next 5 years and wasting 5 years of my adult life in a job that didn't suit me and literally hating every single second of it. One day, I just snapped and walked out, and to be honest, I've never looked back. Soon after, I fell pregnant with my first child, and I really felt that this was a chance for a new start, and it was a new chapter in my life. I started drawing again, and I painted the nursery with a Winnie the Pooh themed mural. The nursery, to be honest, it wasn't my best work ever, but the characters looked just like they did in the book, and most importantly, I proved to myself that I could. In 2006, my partner at the time and I set up one of the first building material reuse centres in the UK. We had done a great deal of research on construction waste, and it quickly became clear that the construction industry was one of the most wasteful industries in the UK. At the time, if I remember this correctly, there was around 120 million tonnes of construction waste sent to landfill every year, and around 13% of that was brand new, unused, still in the packaging. We decided that we would set up a free collection for unwanted building materials, whether new or used, and we took them back to our scrubby little piece of land in Peacehaven that was a part of someone's garden that we rented for £20 a week, and we started filling it with these free materials that we had collected. In no time at all, we had tons of bricks and concrete tiles and salvaged wood, just from a catchment area of 10 miles radius of our yard. Now, bear in mind, we were on the coast, so half of this was water. The patch of land was getting full up, and we realised we couldn't lug these materials through the mud any longer, and we really needed some land with hard standing. Over the next couple of years, we would move twice more. One plot of land on a New Haven industrial site, and again, with some government loan, we moved to Brighton Marina. So the long and the short of this story is, okay, it didn't work out for various reasons, including the end of our relationship, but I'm definitely not going into that today. But before it went down the pan, we had been in the local and national press time and time again for our brand new type of business, saving waste from landfill and saving people money on materials at the same time. We'd also been approached by a couple of production companies who wanted to make a TV show about these unwanted materials to make over people's homes, using the unwanted materials. One of these production companies, Turn TV, actually managed to pull this off. And since seeing my artwork scattered around the yard, they asked me if I could be the presenter, artist and designer of the new reclaimers on UK TV Home. This then later led on to Kirsty's Fill Your House for Free on Channel 4. Since then, I've become a professional writer for Reloved magazine, and I'm asked regularly to attend events centred around reuse and upcycling. In fact, in about a month's time, if you get the next copy of Reloved, I'm writing about this conference, so if you grab it, you might even be in it. I've worked with massive organisations like B&Q and the National Trust, working on campaigns to inspire people to think about what they're throwing away, and maybe they could even use what they already have and upcycle it. I'm giving IKEA and John Lewis a little nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I could be coerced into working with it. So one of the first things people always ask me is, where do you get your ideas? To be honest, my inspiration comes from all sorts of different places. It could be nature, art, a film, a place. Sometimes I don't even know where they come from. I just have an idea and I have to do it. Sometimes I'll find a lovely rusty old thing with bags of character and I know instantly what I want to do with it. And then other times I will actively seek out a particular material that I need for a job. But most of all, I like to grab stuff as and when I see it. It's not like I can just pop down the street and I'll know that I'll find exactly what I need in the nearest skip. So I always have my BDI out, looking for good reusable items, and I like to keep a good stock so I can pull them out whenever I need them. On large projects like my upcycling workshop that I built entirely for free from salvage materials, I did lots of planning and designing and testing of materials. I also did lots of research about load bearing, building regulations and permitted developments. My workshop was the biggest project I've ever attempted. I didn't have any previous building experience and people said I was completely nuts. They're probably right. But I needed a workshop, I was poor, and I was just like, this is happening one way or another. So I thought it would be a really good idea if I wrote a blog about it and put it all over the internet and told people what I was doing so that way I couldn't back out of it later. Plus, I knew from previous experience how many usable materials were laying about just waiting for me to find them. So first of all, I sat down and I drew up a plan of how I envisaged the design to work. Then I drew up a list of the materials that I thought I might need, or what could possibly work for each job. I knew, even before I started this, that pallets were going to be my go-to for the frame. They're sturdy, robust and weatherproof, built to withstand heavy loads, and I knew I could pick up a ton at a moment's notice. Let's be honest, pallets are just everywhere you look. And so, pallet search began. First of all, I started driving around industrial sites, and I got quite a few from Freegal, and then I popped down to the recycling yard, because they always have a stack of free pallets there, but it was just taking a really long time in my van. So then the guy down there offered to drop me off a whole truckload, which saved me loads of time, and it meant that my garden quickly became a muddy sorting ground. I had stacks and stacks and stacks of pallets all sorted out into their correct sizes so that I had them all together, which I thought would save some time. So then I spent the next couple of months blaspheming in a freezing cold winter garden. Needless to say, I managed to find all the materials I needed, including the UPVC windows from a site office, various wood and boarding for the interior and exterior from Freegal, Freecycle and my local classifieds. I even got all the plug sockets, light switches and cabling from different building sites, and out-of-date advertising banners from Cat at Freegal for damp proofing. Finding the materials was even easier than I had anticipated. And the bonus of this was forever going to be my yardstick in proving to people the amount of waste that is needlessly cast aside in the UK every single day. Since Pallet Saga, I've actually become quite attached to them. I've made pinboards, all my garden fences and planters, a mobile festival bar, wooden letters, mirror frames, all the beds in my house, chairs, paint organisers. Hopefully you get the drift. There's nothing you can't do with a pallet. You can't not do. You know what I mean. I'm a great believer in trying out new materials, new techniques and learning every single day. I approach upcycling from an artist's mindset. I know what I like when I see it and I know it looks right. The upcycle trophy that I gave away last night, for instance, my method there was to tip out all the boxes of scrap materials I have in the workshop onto the floor and sit in the middle of it like a primate, picking up bits and experimenting with them. How they would work together, what looks good together, but also keeping in mind that it needs to have a heavy base to stop it falling, that it needs to be robust and safe, and that it should probably be shiny, and most importantly, it's got to look really cool. And I went from there. After a while, it just clicked, and I knew I had the trophy I wanted. As well as scrap materials, I love using contrasting colours in my work and bold patterns. I'm never scared of going all out. My house, and what I'm wearing, is testament to this. What really floats my boat is getting interesting commissions. When a client brings me with a brief, or what I like to call a set of challenges to overcome. Usually, when a client contacts me, they'll have some idea of the function the piece needs to have, and maybe an idea of the materials. Well, they might just say salvage and let me get down to it. For example, the mobile festival bar that I made for the Beach House Bar and Restaurant in Worthing. When the owner contacted me, he knew he wanted a bar made from pallets that was easily movable by one adult. that could be transported by van or car. When asked about the size of the bar set up, he wasn't really sure, but he definitely wanted it to be sturdy and not squash anyone, because that would be really bad for business. He also wanted it to look like a desert island bar, like it could have been constructed from bits washed up on a Caribbean beach. Fine in itself, but how do you take that down and make the whole thing easily movable by one person? How do you stop it falling over when it's put up? How do you make it light enough to carry or move by one person? These are the kind of challenges that I face daily, and to be honest, coming up with these solutions, for me, is as much fun as the actual building. I don't think I'd want to do either job on its own. For me, sitting at a desk designing is only fun if you get to see the build right through to fabricating the piece and vice versa. First thing I did was sit down and draw out a sketch of how I envisaged the bar to work. If it had to fit in a vehicle, then it was going to have to fold up. So my sketch was of 3 pallets joined by parliament hinges. So when folded, the pallets could sit flush on top of one another, one folded forward and one folded backwards. I also knew that pallets are never exactly the same dimensions. Even if they're the same style, same size, made by the same company, they are simply not made to be exact. So I had my sketch and approximate measurements, and I popped down to my local wood reuse centre to have a look for pallets. Luckily, they had some massive pallets that were 4 metres long and 1 metre wide. I was going to use the width for the width of each section of the bar and cut the length to my desired height for the bar, which meant I had some control about making them exact. The bar top had to be reclaimed scaffold planks, basically just because they look so cool and I absolutely love them, and they go really well with pallet wood. The bar needed a sign too, so I spent ages looking for the lightest piece of waning edge oak I could find, and I sign wrote that with their logo. I knew that all this wood together would be quite heavy, so it had to have wheels and handles so one person could move it. I had 1 week to complete that entire project and deliver. The biggest challenge was actually coming up with a plan for keeping the structure standing. It might be stood on grass 1 week, gravel the next. It might be fighting to stand up in wind on a beach. It could have drunk people falling into it, which is probably quite likely. All occurrences had to be thought for and planned for. So what I came up with was using solid metal construction straps on the underside of the bar, which could be configured in a variety of ways and bolted together to make the bar rigid on hard ground. For grass, I used pegs and rope like a tent would along with the straps, and this seemed to work really well. We did lots of testing, which was fun in the garden. I really believe in upcycling and design in general. You are only ever limited by your own imagination, which makes it an extremely exciting industry to be in. I'd like to thank you all for being here today and listening to me rambling on. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, I'll be floating about with a coffee in a bit, so please do come over and have a chat. I don't bite, I might look like I do, but I haven't yet, so. I've also got some cards at the front of the stage. It'd be great if you want to find me on social networking and have a chat. I've also made a stop motion video of the trophy that I made last night, so you can see it building itself, and that's on my social networking as well. And there's also a video on YouTube of me talking about what it's made out of and writing for Real Love magazine. Thank you very much. It was really good fun being here. I had great fun last night as well, and thank you for not falling asleep while I'm talking.